Hi, today's unvarnished conversation is about discussing the blog post, The Endless Masquerade, When Life Loses Its Backstage. Very interesting title, very interesting topic. And my curiosity triggers me to ask you what triggered that topic? What were the triggers that stimulate your brain to write about this blog post?
Well, it's meeting people who seem to have a very fluid way of acting. You know, one day you meet this person, they're very friendly, very nice, and the next day it it's as if you're meeting a completely different person. What causes that change? Or you see them in different contexts. You see them in a social setting and they're behaving in a certain way and they're very comfortable and acting as if, and you look and say, do I really know that person? I've never seen them playing this role before. And then you see them in a different situation and they're behaving differently now. We all have different behaviors in different contexts and different relationships. But when it's extreme to the point where you don't recognize the person and you can hardly believe that this is the same person playing that role, it's as if they have multiple masks, multiple costumes, and it's not it's not the same because there isn't a core of consistency in the behavior. And that core of consistency in the behavior is what allows us to trust those people because we now have a history. If we have taken any risks with them, we kind of know what to anticipate. But when you cannot assess the risk, when you cannot predict what behavior is going to show up in a certain situation, that there can be no trust. And when there is no trust, there isn't much of a relationship. And also, without trust, we lose our ability to influence others. So, what happens when we have these multiple masks that we change at will? And I'm not talking about adaptability. This is not adaptability. In other words, wearing the right clothing for an occasion and behaving appropriately for that occasion. I'm talking about something way more extreme than that. It's someone who behaves in ways that are unrecognizable to what you saw yesterday, last week, last year. And you wonder, what is the core of that person? Where do they live? Who are they really? And possibly the thing to think about is there a line between normal variability in behavior and extremes that are not within the norm, that don't fit any kind of a predictable pattern? How do you deal with something that is not predictable? You cannot assess risk and you cannot trust. What do you do in such situations?
It makes life very difficult managing these people, talking to them, socializing with them, discussing any simple topic with them because you don't know who they really are. If if they're struggling with their own identity, I guess this is a projection of who they really are inside. It's a struggle between themselves because they don't know, they can't really define an identity for themselves. And what worries me and but the questions, why, what happened to these people that pushed them to that fluidity where you can't really recognize them anymore? You see them today, you see them tomorrow, and who are they? They're not the same person.
Yes, well, this is why we're talking about a masquerade. We're not necessarily talking about mental health disorders. We're talking about um, situations where people feel that they have to pretend. to be
Yes.
somebody that they're not. That's what we're talking about. So I don't want to mislead people and have them think I'm talking about mental health issues. No, I'm talking about consciously wearing a mask and wearing a costume for every occasion. And the consistency of the core is not identifiable. That's worrisome.
Mhm. But you know, in a world that we live in a world that people get rewarded for being famous on social media, for doing something that is unfamiliar. So how do these people protect their authentic backstage?
I don't know. The only analogy I can give you is that fame is
Mhm.
very short lived. It's a lot like the moth attracted by the flame of the candle, flying right into it. There is a flash and there is an ending. And if you look at the history of fame, not all fame lasts for anything longer than what is described as a flash in the pan.